Stage, here we go. Nat Turner, how are you?
I'm good. How you doing?
Doing all right. Thanks for hanging out today.
You bet. It's a nice little break from the normal.
Can you see all the action? Can you see all the comments and so forth?
Yeah.
That's cool. That's great. Thanks for hanging out. It's so much fun.
You bet. Thanks for having
I like how Nat Turner looks like he just woke up. It's like, I gotta do this interview with Larry. Oh, man. Waiting for summer. Fair enough. It's been nice here. It's been nice here.
We got together a couple months ago, I think, at one of my portfolio companies, US Mobile's office, and we were talking about all sorts of things. And I was like, that was so much fun. You've been like a collector your whole life. You're now running Collectors, which is, as everyone knows, is the parent of PSA. And I just thought you had such a cool background. So maybe you could just tell us, for those who don't know, a little bit about Collectors, and then a little bit about your journey into running the company.
Sure. Yeah. So Collectors, we bought the company a little over 5 years ago. It was a very small public company, founded in 1986 in Southern California as a coin grading business, which I'm actually a collector of as well. Graded coins.
I didn't know that. I didn't know Collectors started out as a coin business. I didn't know that. 2 minutes in and I already learned something. Good suggestion. Good suggestion here.
In 1991, they launched the first trading card authentication business called PSA, Professional Sports Authenticators. And I think they went public in year 2000. And kind of for 21 years, we're a very small public company, like under 200 million market cap sort of thing.
Wow.
But they did it. Let me see if I have an example. Actually, I do. So they did it because on the back of their slabs, I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah, I can see it.
They put their ticker, and it legitimized the grading service. This is an old ticker, old slab with the ticker on it. This is not a new slab that we recently graded, but it was really smart because it, as a collector, you're like, well, where should I send my card? To this rinky-dink company or to the one that's publicly traded? And so, they got a lot of credibility by being a public company. And so they launched several other things during that period of time, but over the preceding, what would be 21 years, coin grading was actually the biggest business until like 2015. And then around 2015, I believe, I wasn't in the business then, cards and PSA, surpassed coin grading, and it hasn't really looked back. But fast forward to today, we authenticate and grade, I think over 20 different things: comic books, magazines, autographs, coins, like I said, banknotes, trading cards, game used bats, original photographs. We photo match jerseys and game used items, shoes, etc. It's a really expansive thing. We have a big vaulting platform where you can store your collectibles. We have all sorts of things helping you monetize or borrow against, get liquidity from your collectibles. So yeah, it's a
What does he mean by that? I've never seen anything where you could make money from your collectibles. Literally, I've never seen that.
It's a kind of a collectibles ecosystem now, if you will. So.
Yeah, it was this public, almost micro cap company.
Mm-hmm.
And
micro cap.
And you guys bought it. One thing you said to me when we were hanging out was you spend time collecting every day, it sounds like.
Oh my God, yeah.
Tell me more about it. That's crazy. That's awesome.
Yeah, since I was 5, here actually I have one. When I was 5 years old, I started making trading cards, and I would send them to
Nice.
Yeah, I would like design them and write, and then I would send them to the trading card companies saying, I think you should make these, But no, I started collecting really young, and I basically never stopped. And so a lot of kids stopped in the 90s. I was born in the mid 80s, and trading cards had a bad couple years in the early 90s with junk wax, it's called. They overproduced tops in these companies, but I basically never stopped. I mean, I've probably spent 3 to 4 hours, maybe more, every day since 1991, like the whole 10,000 hour thing. I'm in like a million. just sports cards. I messed with Magic the Gathering a little bit. I still do, and then coins, but predominantly basketball, baseball.
That's so boss, bro. That's crazy to be doing something for that long. What a boss. What a boss. I love that. I'm somewhat of a collector myself. I collect GameStop shares.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, it's like what we bought the company because I went home for COVID and was staying with my parents, with my wife and kids, and my mom wheeled down my childhood collection. She's like, get this stuff out of my attic, basically. And I was looking for something to do next, and business wise, and I for years said I wasn't going to mix business with my hobby, which was trading cards. But I was like, this is actually what I love. And so PSA was publicly traded. Like I said, it was the only really accessible business that you could buy, and technically, so that's why I went down that path.
So it's not like you were just looking for a general good buy in the public markets, because you come from a tech background. You're like, I want a collectibles business. I love this stuff.
I love this stuff. And I talked to all the companies, Beckett and all these ones at the time. And I'm like, if it's not PSA to start with, I'm not going to do it. Because to me, as a collector, I had all these non-collector friends who were going to help and invest and stuff. And I was like, it's literally the only option. I'm sorry. Like I literally told them I have tens of thousands of PSA cards. It was to the point where had we bought a different company, I still would collect PSA cards. And so I'm like, it is what it is. And so, yeah, we had to get PSA, and we put an investor group together in late 2020. We did a tender offer. It failed. We did a second one. It thankfully went through. I mean, the business was doing great because of COVID. They had to like pre-release earnings, and the stock went from like in the 20s, and we closed at $91 a share, but by the end, so it was like 4x when we started. But I mean, it was COVID.
Is Collector still public? Does anyone know? I've never seen it, I don't think.
I think a lot of people were worried that COVID, collecting would lose interest, but thankfully it continued. A lot of people left the hobby in 2022, 23, but it's bigger now than it was then. So
got it. Maybe I'll post a
lot of people left 2022 to 23 because they lost all their money in crypto. And basically everything got so clapped at that time.
A question from the audience here, because it relates to a question I was going to ask. Collectibles markets often seem driven more by cultural identity and narrative than traditional economics. What forces actually turn an object from a hobby item into a lasting cultural value? And for the people who may not understand, like Pokemon, which is, been quite an asset over the years, like why is that, and why do certain things have sort of a lasting store of cultural value versus other things that don't?
So I have a strong opinion on this. So in my opinion, anything collectible driven is nostalgia based, and not all things, but the most powerful things. And one of my favorite movies is Hook. And, it's like I'll internally write it all the time, like never grow up. And, when you're my age, our age, you want to be a kid again. We all want to be a kid again. We want to do the things that make us happy. And you were always happiest generally when you were a kid. And, you look at your kids, it's like they're incredibly happy when they're playing with their cards or their dolls, with toys, whatever it is. And so when you take a kid like me in 1991 and you fast forward 35 years and you're like, okay, you have disposable income now. You didn't when you were 5 or 6 years old. These kids grow up and they have, money to spend. And, my dad probably wanted gold bars, and, that's the dream when you grow up, to diversify. But kids these days, they're
diversify? Gross. I don't diversify.
Buying trading cards, they're buying comic books, they're buying things that are nostalgic and also a store of value, which authentication and grading has really legitimized and made real. And so we have this thing here we talk about, it's the rule of 25, which is that if you have an asset, fast forward 25 years, that's when it's going to start maturing into a real nostalgic collectible. values will actually go down for it. Like look at a vintage car. Like, you know, a car that's released will go down in value for a number of years. At some point, it's going to be considered a vintage car. And it's going to be because the kids that thought that car was cool at the time grew up and are like, hey, I want that Corvette or Camaro from, you know, and the same thing happens in trading cards. And so if you look, why is Pokemon going crazy right now? Or started 2 years ago. It's because it came out in 1999 in America. You know, I think Yu-Gi-Oh is going to be the next thing in trading cards.
Yu-Gi-Oh! Whoa, Nat Turner saying Yu-Gi-Oh! Wow. Huh, that's interesting. That is interesting. I get his point, but how come a lot of vintage stuff doesn't really gain as much value as a lot of the new stuff? So I get his point, but a lot of the hype's on the new product.
It came out in the early 2000s. It's not yet 25 years old. It will be soon. And we see that in our submissions.
Oh shit! So it's not even 25 years. Okay. Well, I mean, I guess it technically is. I just don't feel like you're seeing the same appreciation on vintage as you've seen on a lot of these new products. But whatever. I'll stop interrupting the interview.
Sports cards, you know, you go back 25 years, like we think 2002, 2003 cards are going to start popping off, just because the kids that were kids then are now, you know.
So my friend,
it's a theory. It hasn't been studied, but we see it in our data. So
that's fascinating. My friends always ask me, all right, so what's the next thing?
Just go back 25 years.
And you have to, so it's not new. You have to go back to what's old. So like I'm in the sweet spot. I should just think about what I cared about as a kid. That's really, now tell me about, so there's let me pressure test a little bit.
Yeah, it's not always right, but it's generally right.
If the zone is what was sort of nostalgic to you when you were younger, there might be multiple things. Is there something that makes one nostalgic item less likely to be culturally valuable now than another item? Like, is there some screen there? Like you're saying Yu-Gi-Oh may be the next thing because
it may not be.
It might not be. But how would you think about that?
Well, yeah, so you got to also factor in things like production levels. So like, you know, back, I'll give you an example, in the 80s, which is not nostalgic for me, but it is for others, the cards were massively overproduced. Look at Beanie Babies. That's probably another good example. You know, the manufacturer basically ruined, you know, the scarcity, if you will, of that collectible, which is at the end of the day important for collectibles. Like, you know, you can't make 20 million of something when only 1 million people care about it. You know, and so that it has happened, like Beanie Babies, junk wax baseball cards from the 90s, late 80s, early 90s. I can't think of a good example of that in the 2000s other than Beanie Babies, but I'm sure they exist. You know, Pokemon was not crazily produced in the late 90s, early 2000s. Like that's one reason why that vintage Pokemon is so valuable. It's like there's really not that much of it. And most collectibles, when they come out, they're not massively overproduced. But I think that's something you got to factor in. Obviously, with athletes, you have to factor in careers and you know, reputations and, you know, that kind of thing. But yeah, in a broad level, like at a sport level or a category level, I think you just look at the manufacturing.
I feel like there's I don't know if this is, you're way more expert than I am.
What is a pog? What do you guys talk, like a pretty ass white girl? I don't know what you guys are talking about, bro. I think that was before my time. I don't know what pogs are.
But sometimes I feel like the iconic players in my generation when I was a kid, say Ken Griffey Jr., the relative value to Drake May overnight, it's like, it doesn't seem right. It seems like Drake's a rookie plus, you know, and Ken's one of the best ever. And yet it seems like to me, sometimes the great players actually lose value relative to the newer players who everyone knows. Is that fair?
Honestly, I don't think it's that they're losing value. Like Ken Griffey, I can pull it up, but Ken Griffey cards can pretty much guarantee you have gone up over time.
Yeah.
I think it's that there's more kids collecting Drake May and new guys because there's more card collectors today. And that's all it is. And you know, cards at the end of the day are not, there's no, what's the right way to describe this? Drake May is not a stock on the New York Stock Exchange with a limited number of shares.
Yeah.
Right? He's got Topps produces, and Panini historically has produced, a lot of cards of his. And there were a fixed quantity produced in his rookie year, but there's more cards ever created every year. And so, the people who want to speculate on Drake May as a asset, as if it were a stock, as if his career was a stock, are doing so in a confined, way, meaning like, the cards that were, I forget his rookie year, last year, I guess.
Yeah, last year.
Yeah, I mean, like that's what's happening is you just have a lot of kids who they want to watch the players they're speculating on. And, I agree. Like you can, Peyton Manning, who's a bona fide Hall of Famer, won 2 Super Bowls, is probably, his rookie cards are worth less than
Than Drake May.
Yeah. Yeah. So Ken Griffey cards in the last year are up 52.08%.
Really? Okay, there you go. I stand corrected.
Not that he's lost value.
Holy shit, man, that's insane. I'll Google it after this interview.
It's that the store value thing is real. Like there's more kids collecting Drake May than Ken Griffey. So.
Okay, someone was bound to ask this question, so I'm just going to ask it. And it's just like picking it from your children, I know. But what is your favorite card? Do you have one or?
Yeah, I probably do. So the first card I ever got was a 1975 Topps Hank Aaron number 660. My dad got it for me at a card show or card shop on a business trip. He brought it home. It's like a PSA 2. I've never gotten it graded, but I still have that one. Hank Aaron is my dad's favorite player and was mine. Obviously, I didn't see him play, and he retired in 1976, I think. But I have his rookie card in a PSA 10, which has got to be probably my favorite card. And then I would say after that would be my Michael Jordan Precious Metal Gems green, even though it's an altered copy. There's only 10 of them in the world, and one guy I think has 4 or 5 of them. So I'm like one of the only people who has one that this one guy doesn't have. Jordan was grew up in Houston, but my favorite team, obviously, I mean, like everyone was, the Bulls. I mean, Rockets because I lived in Houston, but watching Jordan, and so Jordan's my main PC, the person I collect the most. So I'd have to throw in a Jordan card in there too. But the Hank Aaron probably above that.
Is there like the preeminent Jordan collectible in all of them?
Trading card?
Sure.
PMG green. Yeah, for
PMG
sure.
Green. Okay. Yeah. Got it.
Well, in terms of value, but his rookie card, I'd say most people would say I'd rather have the rookie card because a lot of people don't know the PMG Green card. It's not his rookie card. It's 1997, which is like his 13th year. But, which is it came out. That's the year the final championship, right? But no, I think if you ask like the general population, they'd say his rookie card, but his rookie card, there's 300 plus PSA 10s because it was actually from that kind of like mass produced era. It's still a $200,000 card, but which is insane, but for the population that it has, but it's, not even close to being his most valuable card.
Got it. Fascinating.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'll let you read this.
Oh boy.
So this is talking about you're on social, you're talking to people, which I think is cool, by the way. I think that's how it should be done, but tell us more about that.
Yeah, well, I deleted Twitter or X, whatever, and Instagram from my phone because it got a little crazy how time I was spending on it. So
he got tired of people telling him to buy shares. It's so funny, bro.
I only use it when I'm on my work computer, but I think the card community, I'm part of the card community, and the card community truly lives on social, Instagram. And I recognize a lot of these people's names and from it. And I go back, I've been on the forums in trading cards since the 90s. And for better or for worse, I've engaged with, we're all over the world, the card collecting community, and social media is the way we all communicate. And I actually learn a lot from people's experiences, which they're not shy to share on Twitter mostly. And it helps. Like, I'll be honest, there's a lot of trolling and fake things, like people about stuff. I ask for an order number, I look into it, and the order doesn't exist, or they're completely lying about situations. That's really been unfortunate and annoying. I think there's a lot of paid, people that just want to to try and, create, whatever social negative sentiment. But
Yeah.
the true collectors, like if I can tell that you're having a real problem and like you are a collector and a real customer and, have like an actual issue, it's the fastest way to resolution. We do have a very large customer base and customer support team. And unfortunately, we don't always get it right. It's slow. We know that. We're trying to fix it. And if there's something that I can like quickly fix, I try. And almost more importantly, if there's something I can notice that I'm like, all right, this is like a systematic problem or a code fix or something, let's, I'll forward it to the team and like, we'll fix it. Not just for that one customer, but for everybody.
On that note, I guess,
though.
what it does take a long time to get a card graded. Why is that? And what's going on behind the scenes?
We get, on an average day, we're getting sometimes twice as many cards in for grading than we actually have capacity to grade. Grading is a very, it's both technology and human, involved. It's not just simply like looking at a card and grading it. There's like 12 plus teams that are involved to make one graded trading card. We have to research the card. We have to image the card. We image the card twice before and after grading. You have to grade the card. Multiple graders grade every card. You've got, it's just, there's a lot of,
I didn't know that. That takes away a lot of people's like negative views on PSA, because a lot of people have this idea that one person grades the card and, whether that person's having like a good or bad day, that's going to reflect your grade. But he just said in this interview that multiple people grade one card. So there you go. That's good to know.
There's a lot that goes into it, and hiring's hard. We use AI for a lot of things. It's made it a lot faster. No one should give us credit for this because it's still slow, but we grew our grading capacity, I think almost 40% last year, which is, if you could understand, you haven't seen it yourself, but like the number of teams that had to expand to make that happen was tremendous. Like our team did a great job, but demand grew like 100%. So, that's the reason. I mean, our backlog, it's really a problem. We've tried to control that through extending turnaround times and raising price. We don't love to do either of those things, but we at one point we were running out of physical space to store the backlog.
They've raised price a lot. I think when GameStop first started being able to grade cards, it was like $25. Now it's like 35, I think. So it's wild. What's up, Hugh G? Card has been with PSA since January 10th. 2 months. That's to be expected, I feel like.
We literally don't have space in some of our offices to store the cards. And the last thing we want to do is suspend service levels, because then people can't get their cards graded at any level, right? And at any price. And so, it's that's why it's hard.
Awesome. Yeah, I get it. You guys have you've acquired a couple of graders in the recent years. SGC Beckett. Beckett was like the one that I grew up reading Beckett. Tell us about that. Like, what's going on there? You gonna buy every grader, or what's the plan?
No. So for us, we said this when we bought SGC, we needed access to vintage graders. They still have an awesome team that predominantly specialized in vintage card grading, which is probably the hardest thing. You basically go to school to learn how to be a vintage card grader.
Oh, wow.
Basically, we have our own university for it. It's not an actual degree like numismatics, but it should be. And so anyway, we did that, and
damn, getting into card grading, that'd be kind of like a clutch career path. We'll have to look into that after the interview.
It's actually, we have a huge office in Florida now where we're both grading PSA cards and SGC cards in the same office, separated, but we've been able to leverage their team while also keeping SGC around. Beckett was a similar thing. It's like they are actually the opposite. They have a very strong modern grading team, and we want Beckett to be, we actually joke like make Beckett great again. it had some issues with its, over the last, I would say 5-6 years in execution. And we really needed to, frankly, inject a shot of life into that brand. And so we're investing a ton into the Dallas office, both for Beckett, but also for PSA. We already had an office in Dallas, for PSA, mostly for ticket grading.
Yeah.
But, we're going to have PSA grading there too. It's a lot easier to hire in a market when you have multiple product offerings, teams. Like, you just have more places you can put people who are interested in working for you.
When would I? Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
When would I send something into PSA versus Beckett? What would you advise?
It's a whole different concept. So Beckett provides subgrades on the label. Here I have one right here. So on the top here of this card, you can see centering, edges, corners, surface.
Yep.
So and the autograph separate, which we do too. But I always tell people, if you like the subgrades, it's not something PSA does. It's not something they'll ever do at PSA. That's the number one reason people is, they love the transparency, if you will, of the 4 different characteristics being on the card. Some people like the holders better at Beckett than ours.
Yeah.
Which is fair too. Some people think they do I would say a better job on prices in the market for thicker cards, which can be true. You wouldn't send a vintage card to them. That's when you'd send a PSA or SGC. What I tell folks is just research on Card Ladder or somewhere else of if you think your card's going to be, say, a 9 or a 10, like, which grading company would get you the best price?
Yeah.
If your intention is to sell a card. If you're going to keep the card, then I go back to which holder is more aesthetically pleasing? Do you like subgrades? Do you not? Like, those are the kind of questions. And also pricing. BGS pricing is different. It's actually higher on the lower end of cards and cheaper for the higher end cards. So that's another factor too.
A question on grading video games and how it needs access to playing them.
Yeah,
man, your office must be amazing. You got
what a good question. What a good question.
Lots of stuff.
I got everything here. So I'm not a gamer. Never, I wasn't allowed to growing up. However, I really love games. This is an old WADA case, but like a Jack Nicklaus. Original.
Dude, that's sick.
And then Tetris was the one game I had. I snuck a Game Boy into my.
Who graded
life.
Nice.
So obviously this is not Game Boy. So video game grading is actually expanded. It had a downturn for a couple of years, but we've rebranded it to PSA Games, under the PSA grading brand. This used to be WADA, which is We Are the Authority. This is this is the company we acquired that did
WADA, huh? We're 25 minutes in.
Game grading. But yeah, it's a really cool market. I mean, I think the only issue with it is that they're big and bulky and you can't stack them. Like in the same space, I can have these 2 games. I could probably have 300 graded cards. So it's just harder to amass a big collection, just physically constraints wise. But the prices are really have come back. There was a downturn there for a bit, but there's a lot of gamers, kids growing up, they probably replaced trading cards there for a while. Maybe I'm sure it's still bigger than trading cards. But.
Speaking of adjacent categories, do you authenticate Hot Wheels or is there anything you don't authenticate today that you think should be authenticated?
Our COO collects Hot Wheels. He's been trying to get us to do that for years. No, we don't do Hot Wheels. 3-dimensional things are hard. We messed around. Sorry, I'm going to keep grabbing stuff. But
all good.
We messed around with Funko Pops like this. We discontinued it. It didn't really make sense to the community. Like the secondary prices weren't strong, and to be honest, it's just not a popular thing anymore. Pops.
So interesting, bro. This is actually shout out to Grady. Thanks for suggesting this. I probably would have never watched this if you didn't start talking about it.
We've looked. This is actually kind of cool. So this is the last Beanie Baby, the end.
Wow.
And it's a reminder that collectibles they can come to an end.
Does that make it more valuable, or is that?
I don't know. I'm not a Beanie Baby guy, okay. But we've talked about, the reason I show you this is we've talked about doing toys and figurines, and like Star Wars figurines, I think is one we'd look at. You got to look at things that have counterfeiting, like that people value a third party, in the middle. And you got to look at things where people judge them based on, like, there's a price difference for a really nice condition one or not.
Yeah, I feel like action figures would be really good. A Seinfeld Pops. You got Kramer, bro?
Believe it or not, like, not all things are like that. I think one that we should look at, and we have looked at, is like watches. The problem with watches and sneakers and things like that is that you actually buy them and a lot of people wear them. Like, I'm not going to wear this video game. Like, maybe I want to play it, but I can just go buy a GameStop, buy a different, copy.
Shout out GameStop.
We launched comics and magazines last year. It's gone really well. You can look at like vinyl. There's a good company doing vinyl music. But there's a lot of things.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'll give you another one. Daniel's a great guy, by the way.
I know Daniel.
It's just a broad question. Next 10 years, maybe give us a little prediction. Maybe that's something that's might be surprising to those of us who aren't as close to you on how this is all going to unfold.
If I knew that, man, hopefully it stays, a very rooted and has a strong foundation in true collecting. It's getting a little, speculative and for my liking, but I am not the judge and jury of, how people can and should collect. That's everyone can do their own thing, but there's a lot of, flipping. They rip packs and instantly sell the card. I mean, I did some of that too as a kid, but like, I wish, I hope people get back into like true set collecting with binders and, like all that. My kids are doing it, but like, hopefully, hopefully there's millions of those. But I am very bullish on it because, Fanatics in particular is investing a lot. Upper Deck too, I know the Pokemon company has, they sponsored the freaking Super Bowl, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they're putting a lot of emphasis, those three companies, into growing the hobby through new collectors, getting celebrities involved, athletes, getting them collecting. I don't know. I'm very bullish. I mean, I think you just have to watch, like we were talking about before, overproduction. It's so hard to define what that is, especially in a market that's growing rapidly. Like, seemingly you can't print enough cards right now. There's so much demand, from what I understand. Like, you just look at GameStop. I mean, like the lines for when Pokemon has releases,
can't keep it in stock.
You can't keep it in stock, and like it's a good thing. That means that people want it. I think if Pokemon printed twice as much, it would still have the same problem. There's a line there. I don't know where, and I'm not in charge of any of those companies, but and they're all focused, I'm sure, on not destroying their franchises. But I'm very bullish. It's become a if I had to make one prediction, it's becoming a true store of value. I'm not saying it's crypto. It's not. It's physical. It's even better. I'm anti-crypto, I think but it's.
Yes, anti-crypto. One of us. Crypto sucks. No one likes Seinfeld. I'm old. I love Seinfeld. No soup for you. No soup for you.
It's a physical store of value like gold.
Yep. So. Fair enough. Interesting question here. Will collectibles trade like stocks in a brokerage style app?
We already have this. They must not know. The PSA vault is very, our vision is Schwab. And, it's, you already can go in there and store cards and list them on eBay instantly.
That's not useful, though. Nobody wants to pay fees on eBay, bro. We want to be able to sell directly to the person or whatever. So, which I believe you can. They do have the codes, but nobody wants to sell through eBay.
You can
buy them.
You can buy them and instantly in your account 2 seconds later. It's super cool. We don't have some things, the easy things like portfolio views and how much your portfolio went up today versus that stuff it's coming. The answer is yes.
That's cool. This is an interesting psychological question of what's more satisfying, like finding your chase card in a pack, buying it, or trading for it.
That's an awesome question. I've experienced all of these. There's no better feeling than pulling a card out of a pack. The
I
problem
think that's
is,
right.
yeah, the
Just doesn't
problem.
happen very
Yeah,
often.
I won't do it again, but I have hundreds of unopened boxes near me, and then even more that I've opened where I've gotten nothing. And so, you know, it's like the carcass of the box that I should never have opened. But it is fool's errand to do it. However, there's no better feeling than opening a box. I collect stuff mostly from the 90s and early 2000s, and I open boxes at least once a week from that era. I find them on eBay mostly. Actually, some are at GameStop. I've found some of the stuff in some of the stores, and man, like, well, once a year I'll pull. Actually, the other day, it wasn't even my box though. It was a friend of mine. We pulled a 1996 Platinum Portraits Michael Jordan out of a 1996 Metal Series 2 box. And we freaking lost our minds. Like, we were screaming. My kids woke up. Like, it was awesome. And it's like a $5,000 card, which is insane. Like, we pulled and like we put ourselves in our shoes in 1996. That we would have been losing our freaking minds back then.
That's awesome.
And by the way, we're 40 years old.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So anyway, that's got to be.
Man, I wish I loved something as much as this, bro. I wish I loved something as much as this. That's awesome.
Yeah, but like for me, I set collect a lot, and finding a card that I needed for my set there's a huge relief. The problem with that, as soon as you find it, you're like, oh shit, what now? Like, you know, there's like the chase is more important than or more fun.
Yeah, right.
Completion. So,
Star 85 or Fleer RC?
I think you mean Star 84. Star, yeah, 84 number 101 is the true rookie to me. Michael.
Got it.
He's talking about 86 Fleer is the well-known Jordan rookie, but he was drafted in 84, and 84-85 was his first season, and his first card technically is the 1984 number 101, which is an awesome card. It's the red border. It's not the greatest image. It's not a mass-produced set. There's like, you know, people knock on it, but it's his first card. It's technically his XRC, according to Beckett, which is the definitive, in my opinion, guide for like what rookie cards are. Yeah. Which cards are rookie cards, and we do grade them. I see someone asking. One of the things I made sure we did, we weren't grading them before with the company, before we bought it. And a few years ago, we invested a lot of time and research into, there's a lot of counterfeits out there. And we finally got comfortable with being able to accept them. So
can you talk a little bit about sort of the vault experience? My cards are vaulted with you guys, and there's a lot of pricing data and that you guys display. Some of that data is on, some of the population data I think is on eBay and so forth and other platforms. Like, what goes in that pricing data? Is it reliable? How
No, it's not. It's not reliable.
should we think about it? How would you advise us to use the pricing data that's out there, and how should it not be used?
So the pricing data, it's there. If you hover over it, it'll give you a confidence score, like 1 through 5. A 5 confidence score, even a 4, even sometimes 3, I think very reliable. It's based on hard comps. Card Ladder in particular, which I have up on my screen here, they empirically, like, they believe in only giving you a price if there's at least been one direct comp, meaning that exact card and that exact grade from that exact grading company. All 3 of those things have to be true. And only then will they give you a comp. And that comp could have been from 2 years ago. What they do is they say, oh, is it a Michael Jordan card? Okay, Michael Jordan cards are up 116% in that period of time. And so they affect up that old sale by that index, because presumably all Michael Jordan cards move in a similar way, which I think is right. And what's funny is we built this entire machine learning model to predict price, not using their method. And their method was better. we disbanded. So Card Ladder is awesome. And I think you can trust it. When you go to like low confidence, like let's say the comp was from 12 years ago, you do need to, just do your own research and look and see if there's other copies available on eBay. And that's actually kind of one of the beautiful things of cards. It's not like stocks. There's more nuance to it, and like it's fun to like do this whole thing. But yeah, generally, if you have a high confidence score, I mean, I 100% would use that. I personally, like, if I ever sell a card, I decide what to list it for based on that data. It's gotten really good, and it's only going to get better. I mean, with all the quantity and liquidity happening, I think we almost got to $500 million in sales as an industry digitally tracked last month, in the month of February.
Wow.
Mostly eBay, but like a lot of places, that's a lot of transaction data that's flowing into these systems now. So, you know.
Is there ever going to be a day where why can't cars just be graded with AI and happen like in store or whatever, just overnight? Well, is that going to happen?
Um, you never say never, but you know, trading cards are really complicated, and a lot of it is the physical touch, feel, sometimes smell of cards, and
Really? Sometimes the smell?
sometimes yeah, vintage, yeah. But on
Oh, yeah.
modern cards, you definitely can use computers more than you ever can or could have, and we don't talk about it a lot, but yeah, we use AI a ton for our grading process and research process, and we're going to use it more in the future. But I don't think we don't believe in a world where it's 100% today, just based on a few of the things I said earlier. We believe in an AI assisted human grading approach, tech assisted, where they're massively more efficient, but more importantly, you know, as accurate and consistent as possible, because you have a tandem going with, you know, we have hundreds of millions of cards now we've graded with historical data, images, you know, annotated training data, and like, you know, that does have value. And we have a massive physical library of counterfeit cards and trimmed cards and also altered cards that are in our offices. And we've high res image those. And we, you know, we compare like the 84 Jordan we talked about, like our system actually catches those counterfeits, not humans. So
Wow.
we don't talk about it all the time because it's not important. What people care about is the card in the holder, the grade is accurate, and you know, that's what they care about. Actually, most people, if you actually ask true collectors, they actually don't want their cards graded by AI. They just want their card grade to be accurate as much as possible. They don't really want some giant, dump of data. They want to know the simple grade on top, and that the company stands behind it and it's accurate. And how you get there is up to you. That's, you know, your reputation. You know, if you get it wrong, people are going to start paying less for the cards in those holders on eBay. So that's our belief.
Can you talk a little bit about like consistency in grading, and like, is it PSA 10 always a PSA 10, or people talk about there's variability, they break cards and so forth? What do you think about that?
I mean, it's at the end of the day, it's humans involved in the process. Our team does the very best they can. You know, every card is looked at by at least 2 or 3 people in the grading room. You know, do we get it wrong sometimes? You know, occasionally, and we have a review process. You know, you can submit a card again through a review process where we look at it. We have a CRC.
Oh, you can?
Yeah, it's an
I didn't
official
know
thing on our website. Yeah, and we do our best. I mean, it's an opinion-based service. Our team gives the best opinion it possibly can at the time. The problem is sometimes new information comes to light in the future. Like, for example, what's an example? Like, you know, there's a card out there where a dimple, for example, was part of the print design. And for like a year, the team, you know, knocked the grade for that card, you know, because of this dimple, and they were getting like the highest they would get would be like an 8, for example. Like, yeah, that's our fault. Like but you know, we didn't print the cards, but you know, like, you know, that's you know, things happen, things come up. We have made it so much more consistent, you know, and accurate over the last 5 years, even while growing the team. But we have work to do for sure.
Cool. Maybe at a general level, because there's only so much you can say about GameStop Power Packs, this whole means of trading or buying cards. Maybe you can talk generally about it.
Yeah, so I don't run Power Packs. There's a separate team, you know, GameStop more than us. But yeah, that team, they buy trading cards, you know, off of the open market, graded. I think a lot of them come from GameStop stores. Like, people walk into stores and trade in or, you know, sell their graded cards. But yeah, that team, you know, Power Packs, from what I understand, has been a great success thus far. The GameStop community has really embraced the concept of, you know, real cards but digitally ripped, and a lot of those people.
That's awesome, bro. That's good to know that it's more of GameStop in the Power Pack realm than PSA. It's GameStop's team. Pretty interesting. And also, you know, a lot of the supply is coming from people selling their cards back or whatever.
People are becoming true collectors. We've seen where they, pull a card on Power Packs and then they, start buying cards on eBay or on GameStop, or they vault more cards or they grade more cards. Like it's turning on more collectors, which I think is awesome. But the beauty of that model is that it's the cards aren't physically moved, and they are if you request them to be shipped home. But
Right.
most people are fine keeping them in their phones, if you will. They pull a card, and having it in the vault is good enough. And so Power Packs then can, and other models like that, can make offers to those same cards, and without the cards having to be picked, packed, and shipped, can go back into the ecosystem. Same with the cards on eBay. A lot of these cards are just in the vault.
Yeah.
And so it's a really cool thing. But that team, part of their job, I'm sure, is making sure that there's enough cards for people to, like, I think the Lunar Pokemon packs, they got super close to running out of cards. And they had to, like, frantically, I know, because they came to us early on, how do we find more cards? The community, is into it. So yeah.
That's great. I think a good general question here is,
Bro, running out of Lunar packs? Those are $2,500 a piece, bro. Holy.
someone opens a pack of Pokemon in hard plastic, sends it out, gets a PSA 5. How do you preserve or take care of your card so it gets a better score or has a better chance of it?
Well, I think the biggest thing is pre-filter your cards. You really shouldn't mess with the cards. If there's a fingerprint or something, you can, use a microfiber cloth, and but you don't want to be messing with the cards. So the reality is that card probably had, like, a surface issue or a chipping issue. There was something wrong with it. And, astute, and this is hard, this is part of why the hobby is fun, is, learning to know what cards are worth grading before you send them in is actually an art to it, and an experience. And, like, buy yourself, I don't have one near me, but buy yourself a loop, it's called. Here, I have one. Which is like a magnifying, they look like this. And, buy yourself a...
Wait, let me see that again.
Oh, sorry, yeah. It's just a little mic.
Oh, okay, got it.
Yeah, and, like, look at the corners and then learn how to tilt the card in the light and see if there's creases. Usually when you see a grade like a 5 or less, it's usually because of some sort of major surface issue. I just have to remind everyone, like, all the time, like, just because you pulled the card out of a pack does not mean it's a 10. Pack fresh does not mean 10. Cards have bad centering. Cards could have print defects. Cards could have gotten damaged in the pack. The number of times I've pulled a card, I'm like, this is incredible. And then it comes back 7, 6, 5, and you look, you're like, there's a print line, there's a whatever. Manufacturers are arguably have a harder job than we do, printing millions and millions of cards. They're not all 10s, nowhere close. So yeah, Pokemon does a pretty good job of it, though. The gym rates on modern Pokemon are like 60-70% sometimes out of sets. So meaning the
Oh, wow.
So yeah.
Okay, random question.
You would say hockey? Oh, like World Baseball Classic? We freaked out on the hockey game. We love hockey, my son and I. But Baseball Classic's awesome. The team, I think we play Venezuela tonight. It's gonna be great.
PSA vending machine selling slabs.
I don't think we're gonna. This is not really our ethos. There are companies that have vending machines. They're cool. I mean, I've seen them. There's one at JFK Airport. They're really cool.
Yeah, I would never expect PSA to do a vending machine. Maybe GameStop, but PSA seems like a digital business, not really physical. Although they do have those pop-ups sometimes, which is kind of cool.
We're not really. We've got so much going on. We're just trying to get cards back faster. So I don't think it's in the cards, no pun intended, for us at the moment. But if there are third-party companies that are experimenting with this stuff, if people like it, we're not. I mean, go for it. you know, there were some, I think in Vegas, there's some, you know, in some hotels and stuff, but yeah, it's not something we're going to do anytime soon on our own.
No pressure, man.
Oh, all right, here we go.
Let's do it.
They're gonna open a pack. That's
not what people actually. Here, I got Pokemon too. Let's see.
Okay, cool. You're gonna show us the expert way of open a pack.
Yeah, well, this is not what the people want, but I've got 1988. 88. Yeah, Leaf. I've been trying to pull Nolan Ryan. These are old wax packs, so they're literally filled with wax. Yeah. But I've been trying to pull Nolan Ryan for a long time. Well, and one that would get a 10 because for my set. Let's see. I got literally nothing. Yeah, I should have brought a 90s basketball box because that's the real fun stuff. Tony Gwynn, that's cool.
Oh, that's cool. He's I'm a San Diego guy, you know. Tony Gwynn's the best.
It's actually centered pretty well.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah, the Leaf cards were pretty tough for centering, and then just because I know people love Pokemon, probably. So this is, I think, Mega Evolution. Yeah, Phantasmal.
Nice.
Lames. I have a box sitting over here on my desk, and every time I have a one-on-one, we like open a pack, but we haven't gotten anything good. None of us. And the streak continues. Best card probably would be.
Nice.
That one, no good. Yeah. I'm not a Pokemon expert, but I do enjoy opening packs. Oh, I think I got something nice here. No, never mind. That's probably the nicest one.
Nice.
So nothing great. Oh, this is cool too. Nothing too rare. So
that's fun.
Yeah.
Never stops being fun. This was an interesting question. Have you personally graded cards?
Does that mean, do I submit cards or do I?
No, like you are the grader.
No, I am not a grader. I have not gone through the grading university, which is a requirement to be a grader. So no, the answer is no. However, I definitely am consulted on authentication of 90s cards, mostly basketball, only because I, as I mentioned before, have definitely 10,000 plus hours of experience in identifying real from fake. Just because as a collector, you know, I know like others know way more than me, but you know, serial numbers, autographs, just things to look for. There's a lot of issues from the 90s with, you know, employees walking out of the back door with cards, uncut sheets being, you know, Fleer Skybox went bankrupt in 2006 and all their assets were liquidated on the courthouse steps and they got out and some bad people have access to them. So that kind of, I definitely, you know, have helped on like 90s, you know, third or fourth opinions on like, does this card look real or not? But no, not on grading. I wish. I don't think I have the eye for that.
What do you think about Logan Paul selling his
card? The Illustrator. I am not a big Pokemon collector personally, so I do not. I mean, what I do understand of that card, I think there's like 37 of them that got out or were supposed to be, you know, from the original. It was, I think, a contest where like you could submit, you know, and you were called an illustrator, right, as one of the designers back then. Yeah, and I don't know. I'm not an expert, but you know, the card. I think Logan Paul brought a lot to the table with marketing the card, and you know, they did a great job. I mean, I don't know if that card's worth that much money. Well, first of all, no card is worth any. They're all pieces of cardboard, so they're only worth what.
Damn, that's crazy coming from Nat Turner, bro. That's crazy coming from Nat Turner.
Yeah,
just seemed like gold, I guess. But you know, it's the Honus Wagner, if you will, of Pokemon. So, you know, for that reason alone, like any price doesn't surprise me. Or, you know, but is it going to go up? I have no idea. I hope it does. I'm sure it will. There's a lot more people who collected Pokemon in 1999 than people realize. Meaning like when they grow up and, you know, like we're seeing this is back to the original point. The guy who bought it from is our age. Or, you know, it's like the same thing from that we talked about.
That's funny.
Yeah, but it was incredible.
So this is a good general question. Hulkster has his own strategy, but what's your advice on strategy for investing and collecting cards? Like, what are the angles to take?
Yeah, so I've done this my whole trading card career too. I picked some good ones and I picked some bad ones. I picked LeBron in 03. That was a good one. I picked Gerald Green in 2005. That was a bad one. I picked John Morant in 2019. That was not so good. And I picked Jordan, but that was way after he was already good.
Yep.
Yeah, I tell people all the time, collect what you like. That's what matters the most. And personally, it's really fun to, gambling, sports betting is to me, it's like, you're betting on like a game. Like that's, I don't know, not as fun. To me, if you put, 1% of your net worth into a player's career, it's like going long on a stock. Going long on a player is a lot more fun to me personally than, so yeah, his strategy of like picking a player, it's like going long on a stock. Yeah, I think that's cool. And like, I personally have done that, I don't know, 7 or 8 times. I probably like batting 500 on that, but I've had some other really bad ones.
There's a bunch of questions generally on blockchain and cards and tokenization and where that's all going to play in trading cards.
But we have this rule here, or rule of value called start with why, which I always have to remind people too. It's like, what problem are you solving?
Yeah. And
like, why do you need to do this? And like a lot of these blockchain things, people are like, well, just because it's blockchain, and like, because chain of custody. I'm like, well, we already do that. And there's not a problem with the current model that I can think of. And then I hear people like, well, I want to trade them on OpenSea as NFTs. I'm like, okay, but they're already traded every day, $500 million. Like, do we really want those traded on no? Like, I don't know. No one's really been able to convince me, at least, that blockchain is for lending. No, still no. Like the cards are in the vault. Like there's no real use case for trading cards. There will be, sure. But like, as we stand here right now, like it doesn't solve a real problem. So I don't know, maybe I'm thick-headed about it, but like.
Oh, I love that answer so much. It's the best answer you could have give.
It doesn't do anything.
Now, what about collateralizing your cards and issuing loans against them, since they are a store of value?
You don't need blockchain for that. Like,
well, this is separate from blockchain.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I mean, this would be a good idea. We're doing this. PSA has a thing called Collectors Financial Services. PSA Capital is another word for it. But we already provide liquidity. If you have cards vaulted, we don't syndicate those things out where you could, buy bonds or whatever, on cards.
Yeah, right.
You can 100% get liquidity on stored assets today. There are other companies that do that too, but because we have a vault and because your like the brokerage account, like we talked about, accessing liquidity for your cards without selling them is definitely a why. Like people want that, and we provide it, as do other companies. I think it's a lot of power in that in the future for sure.
I've never heard of that. What do they mean? What do they mean they provide it? I've never seen that. Never heard of it. That's cool. I mean, it gives, cards value, but I've never heard of that.
Yeah. There's been some questions around like, where's the Vault, PSA Vault app going? When can we trade in it? Do other types of transactions?
Yeah. Well, we have a very tight partnership with eBay, which I personally think is the best source of buying and selling out there. It has been since I was a kid. Staying power is just incredible. And, I think, personally, that's where you get the highest prices. That's where and so our efforts are around providing liquidity through eBay. As far as trading, we have gotten that request quite a bit. We are soon going to launch peer-to-peer transferring in the vault. I don't personally believe in like helping people decide what to trade. I think that's like the romantic part of cards is like do that through Instagram DMs. And then once you figure out a trade, then do the P2P transferring. We can help be like an escrow agent a little bit where it's like, hey, these cards are in the escrow account they're in purgatory until the other party releases their cards. Like we can do cool stuff like that to bring trust to the process. But going further than that, like this card's worth this, your card's worth this. Like, let people figure that out, through DMs, and then we'll do the infrastructure.
Yeah, that's what I want to see. I want to see peer-to-peer transactions and easy trading. Also, it'd be easy to buy and sell, and you wouldn't have to use eBay in that scenario. But obviously, PSA would still take a fee, most likely, for being the quote-unquote escrow agent or whatever.
Awesome. All right, I said I'd keep you for about an hour, so we're almost there. Like any parting comments, thoughts? This has been so much fun. If not, I don't know if you can share this. There was one story we ended our conversation on, which was fun last time, about you playing golf with Michael Jordan, which was pretty cool.
Oh, no, yeah. He's a big golfer and bets a lot, from what I understand.
Got it. Thanks for hanging out with us. It was so much fun.
Yeah.
And we'll catch up again sometime soon. All
Okay.
right. Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Take care. Bye.
Oh, that was awesome.